was something really great about having, kind of a unified culture, a uniculture,
Mhm.
where there wasn't a lot of choice, but everyone kind of was unified in what they watched. And there was a lot of bad that came with that, where
Mhm.
there were only a certain amount of people let in that door. There was representation issues, all those things. And now you have almost the opposite, where it's like you can watch anything,
Yeah,
anytime, anywhere, everyone. And I think it's almost gone too far where it's sort of like there is no unified culture anymore. We're sort of a fragment culture
right.
where the only thing everyone is aware of is the Super Bowl.
Three things you're going to learn from this episode today. Number one, why the best creative leaders don't lead with control, they lead with curiosity. Number two, the secret to staying relevant in an evolving media world. And number three, why leading people and telling powerful stories require the same muscles: empathy, clarity, and courage. Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. What do you get when you combine a five-time Emmy winner, Academy Award winner, and a Peabody Award winner, the creative force behind Surviving R. Kelly, You, Vikings, Intervention, and Janet, a three-time novelist who's earned international acclaim and multiple literary awards, and the president shaping the future of A&E, Lifetime, and History networks? You get Rob Sharenow. Rob isn't just leading one of television's most powerful networks, he's leading a renaissance in storytelling. From unscripted hits to prestige documentaries and award-winning dramas, Rob has built a career on curiosity, courage, and the conviction that leadership and storytelling are one and the same. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Wow, that was quite an intro. And like, I guess the first lesson of leadership is always give credit to your teams because
Yes.
I feel like the teams won most of those awards in the intro, and I took credit and got a lot of glory for them. But anyway, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's my absolute pleasure. And what you just said is what great leaders do. They let their people shine. And so, bravo for starting off on the right foot. So, I start every show the same, and I know a little bit of your story, but for my audience who hasn't met you yet, could you share a little bit of your backstory?
Yeah, I had kind of a circuitous route into the business, and I think it's very atypical, particularly these days. I did not go to school for anything I've ever done professionally. So, I never took a writing class, I never took a film class, I never took media or television studies, none of it, either in high school or college. And sort of everything was, kind of came through hands-on professional experience. And I was actually an academic, in a PhD program, not happy in doing that. And I think one of the things that is a theme that like people, particularly in the entertainment industry, run from is this idea of failure or not succeeding at things. And I felt like, not that being in academics was a failure because I got a lot out of it, but it was definitely not for me.
Mm,
And I did try a lot of things along my journey, including while I was in graduate school, I sold a screenplay, which I thought really was, I really aspired to be a writer. So I sort of bought the books and took a weekend class and learned how to write screenplays and sold a screenplay, which was sort of the, my 20s aspiration. When I was in my 20s, I was like, boy, I really want to be a screenwriter. And of course, that movie never got made, but I got hired to write another movie that, of course, never got made. And, one of the things I learned about that, through that, and again, it wasn't, I think there are ways to tell your story differently. So, I was an academic and I had a fellowship to NYU, I had a really good deal. And like part of it, you could tell that story as, wow, that's, a success story. I see it as like, okay, that was something I kind of wasn't meant to do.
yeah.
And like same with screenwriting, it's like, oh, I sold a screenplay. I got hired to write I sold a couple scripts and was working in that world. And yet what I realized through the experience was it was very isolated. I didn't like being alone all day, did not like having no control at all over what happens to what I wrote or what I did. And like, because everything in that world at that time was really controlled, by the studios and the producers. And so again, I sort of made another pivot to television writing, which was much more gratifying almost immediately because in television, particularly at that time, there was a lot of opportunity, or and there still is. But I think it was also the thing that was gratifying was two things that were differentiated from the prior experience. One was you're part of a team. You were working as a group. It was very collaborative from the get-go. There was nothing, no one was sitting alone in their apartment, or I wasn't sitting alone in my apartment. And two, if you were being paid for something, it was going to get made generally. Like, so
Yeah.
when I was working, the first show I worked on, 2 weeks later, there was something on TV. And like that was that sort of sense of momentum and that sense of being part of something that was active and alive was really exciting for me. And that's sort of how I got into television. Um,
I love it. And you've got three different brands that have a through line through them, A&E, Lifetime, and History. So lots of different teams with lots of different needs. How do you focus on the culture and bringing out the best in people? Because I know in this business, it's turbulent, especially now. So what are some of the things that you've done over time that you've learned have really helped?
well, I think well, first of all, it helped that I came up through the ranks and I kind
Yeah.
of I'm a maker, and I think it's I always was like I always had a sort of a odd relationship with executives because I was
Mm.
like, you don't really do anything. You just sit there and like
Move things
and
around. Yeah.
and move things around. And I was used to producing and writing and all that. So I definitely and my company A&E as a culture, it was very unusual because the current CEO was a producer, the prior CEO was a producer, and the one before that was a producer also. So all of them had hands-on creative experience, which I think is really unusual
Yeah.
in media because, but there is a deeper appreciation for the process and what it's sort of not just like you flip a switch and a show comes on. I think the people who generally I worked with at this company knew how the sausage was made,
Yeah.
is good and bad because it also means, they weren't going to, you couldn't sneak anything by anybody. So getting back to how I managed the teams,
Yeah.
now, again, I think it helps to come up through the ranks and know how things are done. And I'll be candid. I'm I think I'm a fair boss and a straightforward leader, but I'm not an easy person to work for. And because I kind of apply the same principles across everything, which is if you're coming to me with something, and this goes back to my days as a writer, my very first agent in the business said, no one ever wants to read anything twice. So if you're going to hand something over or present something, it has to be as good as it can possibly be to the best of your ability.
Mm.
And I really took that to heart. And I think that's true. Like, no one wants to, like, everyone's time is valuable and people get
Sure.
tired. And I think a lot of creative people assume that they're just going to spit out something on the page, whether it be an idea or a script or whatever, and like, oh, fill in the blanks. You can see how good it will
Yeah.
be.
Here's the framework. You can figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't, I really am very strict in, I like my creative teams to come ready and
Yeah.
like to come as if this matters. You've thought through everything. Because I used to pitch. I used to be out there pitching and like eating what I killed and like, singing for my supper. And I think I try and instill that sense of preparedness, but also caring. Like you really
Mm.
have to believe, it's like there are two pieces to the puzzle. Uh, One is passion, which you need.
Hmm.
Like you really have to be passionate. That's the key to everything. But you also have to have, when you're on the executive side, you also have to have conviction. And what I mean by conviction and the difference is passion means you love this thing.
Yeah.
You just love it. It's great. You see greatness in it.
Hmm.
Conviction means that you think other people will too.
Mm.
Because I think there are certain things that I love that I know no one would ever watch on any of our and I think that there are a lot of people come into these jobs and think, oh, I'm going to sell through my, like whatever I love is just going to,
Yeah.
and I think having a respect for the audience, knowing that it's not just about you, And there's a line because I think the greatest artists always sort of stand alone for a while and make
Mm-hmm.
people come to them. But I also think, you know, again, if you're on one of my teams, you have to be aware of that. And you have to say, look, I know there's kind of nothing like this out there, but
Yeah.
here's why I think it's going to work anyway.
Yeah, I love the strict but fair. And I think in the creative business, especially as volatile as it is, you have to kill some ideas sometimes. And everybody is in sales in media. You just are, whether you think you are or not, because you're pitching your ideas. You're trying to have that conviction about what it is you've created. I know this was something for me when I was leading big teams. If I had to kill an idea or if I had to tell someone that feedback, was I couldn't do anything with it, that's a hard message for the recipient. So, was there a time you had to kill a good idea, and how did you work through it? Because I think this is a concept a lot of leaders kind of get tripped up on, and they don't want to hurt people's feelings. And it sounds like you have pretty strong convictions in your beliefs of what's going to work. But can you remember a good, or not a good kill, but a moment
No,
you
I
had to
mean,
kill something?
I think it's really good to be straightforward but
Yeah.
kind. I think and there's a difference between, you know, I'm trying to think about, I think that, every agent in the world will tell you that the second best answer is no. Um, that said, I think that creativity is also an endurance test. So if someone pitches something and they sort of get rebuffed or there's a block, I always think, well, that's a test.
Mm,
And, that famously Harry Potter was rejected by every single
right.
publisher in the world and every agent. No one would take it. Same with The Help, the book The Help. She couldn't, get arrested. And I think a lot of people, what I do get frustrated when people expect it to be easy, and expect to just trip into it. So what I usually do on the idea front, if it's just a raw idea, I try and find a way to sort of direct people to where I think it could be improved or made
Mm,
right for um, for our brands or whoever. And, then if it's actually something, then oftentimes it's just a financial decision. And where a
yeah.
company, it's a business, and,
Yep.
they don't call it show family, it's called show business, and like,
Right.
so I think I have a responsibility in the job I'm in to make sure that we're
Mm,
serving our audience and also taking care of the people who work here. So if something is really going to hurt us financially, that's kind of a no-go. And
of
like
course.
that happened with, some shows that I love. Some of my favorite shows I ever worked on, I had to pass on just
Yeah.
because, well, we were never going to make any money on it just because of the
Mm,
cost structure and the way things are. And I think having that direct conversation is okay too.
hmm
And telling, it's, look, I love this, but
Yeah.
it just doesn't fit our financial model.
What was your favorite show you ever worked on?
Well, I guess, one of the, it was when I was a producer. I think my happiest time professionally was when I was working on a show called This Week in History,
Mm,
because I was a history fan. And like, as I made my journey as a writer producer, I always wanted to work at the History Channel. Um, and that job, I was actually moonlighting. When I wrote the pilot for that show, I was working at another company making a lot of money for the first time.
mm,
Not a lot of money, but relative to what I
yeah.
made in my 20s or however old I was. And I got I wrote the pilot and it got picked up for series, and I had to make a decision to leave this lucrative job and take a 30 to 40% pay cut to go
Yeah.
work on This Week in History. And I did make that decision, which was like kind of the best decision I ever made because
Yeah.
A, I just love that job because it was sort of like 60 Minutes for History, where every week we did a magazine show about everything that
Yeah.
had gone on. And I had this wonderful team. Some of the people who worked on that show 25 years ago, I still work with, are still sort of
Mm,
in the A&E family somewhere. Um, and so that was just great. You didn't have to, I don't, I did take a pay cut to take the job, but like I always said to my wife, who,
Yeah.
I always said to her, I was like, this is like the kind of job they would not have to pay me. I would do this for free. I was having
Oh.
so much fun. I'm glad that I did get paid, and eventually it kind of led to the path where I am now.
So what you don't know is that I'm cousins with Rob's wife. That's part of why I got him here. So it's extra special having you on. So just thinking back through, I mean, the headlines are constantly moving in the media space right now, and it's so volatile. What's going on? Like what do the average Joe need to understand about TV and what's happening? I mean, there's so much competition with social media, with YouTube, like what are you seeing as a network exec right now that you would want people to understand?
Well, I mean, I think everyone is experiencing exactly, I'm a consumer just like everyone else, and
Hmm.
they're experiencing exactly what I am, which is incredible fragmentation. Um, and I used to say, you know, when I grew up, there were like basically three channels, and we
We
lived.
were talking about that last night. You had to get up and change the channel.
You have to get up to change the channel, but there are only three channels and like 50 shows to watch.
Right,
So, on an average, on an average week, the Waltons would get 25 million viewers, and so would
right.
Sanford and Son. And there was something really great about having, I call it, kind of a unified culture, a uniculture,
Hmm.
where there wasn't a lot of choice, but everyone kind of was unified in what they watched. And there was a lot of bad that came with that, where,
Hmm.
there were only a certain amount of people let in that door. There was representation issues, all those things. And now you have almost the opposite, where it's like you can watch anything,
Yeah,
anytime, anywhere, everyone. And I think it's almost gone too far where it's sort of like there is no unified culture anymore. We're sort of a fragment culture
right.
where the only thing everyone is aware of is the Super Bowl. That's
Yeah,
it. And like when you think about it, it was nice to have like a set of cultural references that everyone understood. I always turn back to music.
yeah.
Yeah, like when you look at the charts from like the mid 70s, you'd see like Stevie Wonder and Paul
Hmm.
McCartney and disco and John Denver, and it would all be in the same chart.
Sure.
And that meant like everyone who was alive at that time knew all those songs.
Yeah.
And it was like a unified culture. Now, I think
It's like
music,
too many choices.
it's very fragmented also.
Yeah.
And also the thing I really don't like is when you hear the phrase, someone will be talking about a particular show or type of music, and it says like, that's not for you. It's for somebody else.
Ooh,
No, but that's true. It's like
yeah,
there is a lot of stuff being made very specifically for a
sure.
targeted audience to play to the, to preach to the choir, as it were. And I think my job and what I aim for, and I think what the best shows do, is cut through that and
Yeah.
like bring people together through some sort of common thread that's universal across all the division we have
Hmm.
in society is kind of represented in what we see, not just in platforms, but in content.
Well, I think your point is well taken. And I remember the time, when you could talk about a show, whether it was Sex and the City or Seinfeld or Friends or some show that was, it was the zeitgeist. Everybody knew it. And there wasn't as many choices. So that's what you watched. And now if you say, "Oh, have you turned on such and such a show? It's so good." No, I don't even have that channel. Or no, I haven't heard anything about it. And it's just because it's so flooded with choices and it's good and bad. You can, customize your world so you stay in your bubble, or you can really kind of branch out. So in a world that things are being canceled all the time, things are, being shifted and changed, and networks are being bought, and channels are being divested, and YouTube's having fights with ABC and CBS and whatever. How do you keep psychological safety with your teams?
Well, again, I think it's about, staying true to the mission of trying to find things that resonate through culture and to do the very best we can. You can only do the best you can. And if you're not doing that, well, you're screwed. But I do think that that's, all you can do is the best you can do. All we can do is try and find things that resonate broadly.
Yeah.
And no matter what's going on with this platform, that platform, this merger, that merger, kind of doesn't matter. And I do feel like, creative always leads the way eventually.
Mhm.
I always, my references are kind of old, but I always think about when the Fox network was born,
Hmm.
really The Simpsons. The
Yep.
Simpsons built a whole network. That network, I'm not sure would have survived had it not been for that one show.
And it's
And I
still
think
on
about,
today.
and it's still on today. And I think a lot of, people forget that the impact that individual creative acts can have on platforms. And I
Yeah.
think that's I think you're seeing that on all platforms where some of them are really rising. There's so
Mhm.
many, Mr. Beast obviously is a
Oh,
YouTube phenomenon, like,
unbelievable.
but how many were there? There were like millions probably, and
Right.
this was the one that kind of
Took
rose
off.
above because it
Yeah.
appealed most broadly. And I do think that that's always going to be, and not to make any value judgment or aesthetic judgment on any of this stuff, but I do think that's where that's really what will lead eventually. I think once it
Mhm.
all gets sorted out, people will have their platforms and everyone will consume things in a more settled manner, because I do think
Mhm.
we're in a moment of disruption.
Yeah.
Then it's up to the creatives. Like, okay, who's
Mm.
going to win the creative foot race? And it'll be, I think right now it's hard to see that, but I do think that's always the game.
I love that idea. All right, so hold that thought. Guys, if you like what you're hearing, please go out, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go leave a 5-star review at Apple or Spotify. Tell your friends about this show. I hope you love it as much as I do. And for my loyal listeners, I have your back. Go out to cozyearth.com, use the code Lead with Heart. It's the deepest discount you can get anywhere. That's 41% off. And I get a commission too. So happy shopping. It's holiday season's almost upon us. So let's keep going. So, Rob, what inspires you?
I'm always inspired by ideas and creativity, and that, I do think creativity can take all sorts of forms. It doesn't have to be like the traditional sense. Sometimes, I'm having a meeting with my strategy team later, and sometimes it's a strategic idea that's really innovative and exciting. And I have such an amazing strategy team, but like an idea, like I'll give it's always like for me, that's always the thing that gets my heart beating is something where someone's bringing to the table something creative. And I do think it takes courage to to like actually say an idea. Like that's an
Oh,
act
yeah,
of, someone said this in a book recently. I forget who wrote the book, but like even speaking in a meeting is an act of creativity because
sure
most people
is.
don't say anything in a meeting.
Hmm.
But we have a couple of things. Like some of them are huge, some of them are like start small, and like we do a lot of crime and true crime stuff on A&E,
Right.
which is great. And I was like watching something that I had very not low expectations for, but I've watched a lot of this over the years, so it's very hard to get me excited about it. But I was watching this pilot and I could not stop watching it. I was so
Oh, that's
riveted,
great.
and I really thought I would just be doing it half paying attention, doing
Yeah.
my to-do list, and I couldn't stop watching it. And I was so impressed by it was actually our producers, A&E Factual Studios, that made it, and the A&E team, and I was so impressed because it was like, wow, they really took something that could have been so pedestrian and
Hmm.
turned it into something extraordinary. The opposite end of that is we're sort of doing this enormous project on World War II with Tom Hanks
Mm, of
that, I think that was kind of a dream project for many, many years to
course.
do the definitive story of World War II
Well, and
in
he's done so
20.
much on that. So he's become
Yeah.
such a savant on the topic. So it's going to be so interesting to poke
Well,
his
to get
brain on that.
Tom, like he's so associated with World War II and
Yeah.
he's so knowledgeable and he's on camera and doing it and like that. I've been watching some of that and that came together kind of again beyond my expectations, even though they were pretty high. So like again, it's always like the creativity, whether it's a creative idea, someone raising their hand in a meeting, or a big, a
Yeah.
massive project.
Can you say what that first show is that you were talking about that you were so impressed by?
I don't know if we've announced it yet. It's coming out in January.
Okay.
But it's really, really innovative and like thrilling. And
Oh, I can't
I
wait.
would say, but I don't know if we've announced it yet.
All right, all right. What would you like your legacy to be? You've done a million things. You've got a million awards. What would you like it to be?
Uh, I really, I always think about people who think about their legacy as being, that's like, it's such an ego-driven business. And not to say that I don't have a big ego, but, I do think that thankfully I'm a little more advanced in my career. So I'm not thinking like I don't want a Mount Rushmore for me.
Yeah.
But what I would like is for people to think, wow, I did my best work or I learned the most while working within Rob's teams.
I
That
love
that
that.
that's like, and like carrying whatever they learned forward. But I want people to look back and say, oh, what this was like a high point in my career when I got
Mhm.
to do this.
Yeah, everybody answers that question differently, and some people get choked up and they cry and they think of like their global impact. And I don't know, I never know what people are going to say, so I
Well, for
always
me, it's
enjoy
all
that
about my
question.
family, if I'm being
Yeah,
honest, and everyone knows this. Like, whenever there's like an event at work, I'm the first to leave because I usually want to just go be with my
yeah,
family. So, like, it's all my heart and soul is really with my family, and I love my job and I pour my heart and
yes,
soul into it. But my family is the most important.
so good. What's next for you?
Well, more of the same. I mean, in a good way. I mean, I think we're always trying to innovate here, and kind of anticipate what the next, where the next platform breakthrough will be, where the next genre breakthrough will be. And I think I'm waiting for the ideas to come through the door. Sometimes I have a meeting this afternoon and we're going to sort of do a brainstorming session. So I think one of the things I love most about the job is the surprises.
Yeah,
And because, I think John Lennon had a quote that was like, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And I do think that no matter what I say right now, I think it'll be different. So I'm looking forward to being pleasantly surprised, not unpleasantly surprised,
yeah.
pleasantly surprised by the future.
Well, I mean, I love the creative space. I always have, and I think there's so much excitement around people coming up with new and innovative ideas, and I like to surround myself with those people, so I can only imagine how exciting that is. How can people find you or follow you?
I am not a social media person because I like, again, first of all, I used to, not that I try and be inaccessible, but I kind of do because I try and empower my leaders.
Hmm.
Like I want the head of history to run history, lifetime to
Yep.
run lifetime, A&E to run A&E. And I do feel like, um, you know, so I'm not like, hey, my email's this. I don't have a LinkedIn. I'm not that guy. And I've been
Yeah.
at the company a very long time, and I really feel a great fidelity to here because I think a lot of people are always constantly looking for their next job. I'm
Hmm.
not that guy. Like I really I've been fully committed to this place for a long time. And I
Yeah.
think until I'm not, until I'm not here, that's what I will be. But in terms of reaching me, I would definitely go through my teams because
Yeah.
again, I feel like you want that passionate person, even a more junior, like the more junior person who's going to make their career
Hmm.
on what you bring them. That's the person you should be trying to find, not me. Like I'm like kind of I'm the quick no or like, at this point, but not that I'm inaccessible or like
Yeah.
unfriendly, but
No, well, that is like the most cool leadership answer you could say for how to find you. So I love that. And I love putting the spotlight on my leaders and the people that work with me. That is a true power skill. And it's just so good that you do it. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Rob. I certainly did. And please tell your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go out, leave a 5-star review at Apple or Spotify. Rob, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
so great. And I'll see you at the next family function, I
You
guess.
sure will. You sure will. Everybody get out there, go lead with heart, and have a great day. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.